This now reports many of the documents related to then-candidate Trump's business interests, which Jack Smith's investigators believed was a likely motive for why he kept them at Mar-a-Lago, according to newly released case records. And one of the documents Trump held on to was so sensitive, only 6 people in the country had the authority to review it. Back with us, one of the reporters who broke this story, Jackie Alamany. Jackie, walk us through this new information. What did the new case records reveal?
Yeah, and it's actually a very interesting disclosure that we got last night. We were able to review a 2023 prosecution memo, a progress memo that Jack Smith had authored in 2023 about those 3 items that you just listed, where Smith essentially concluded that Trump was largely driven by primary motivation connected to his business interests with regards to him taking hundreds and thousands of classified documents from the White House to Mar-a-Lago after his presidency. These documents came because the Justice Department actually accidentally released them to House and Senate Republicans as a part of this operation called Arctic Frost.
Donald Trump is absolutely furious right now, because what was supposed to protect him may have just exposed everything. Pam Bondi, his own ally, just made a mistake so massive it didn't just backfire. It may have handed investigators the exact evidence they've been looking for this entire time. And the worst part? This wasn't uncovered by opponents. It was accidentally released by his own side. Slow this down, because what just happened is easy to miss if you're not paying close attention. Over the past few weeks, Pam Bondi has been overseeing the release of documents tied to the classified documents investigation into Donald Trump. The purpose? Find inconsistencies, find bias, find anything that could discredit the investigation led by Jack Smith. In other words, prove the case against Trump was flawed. But instead of exposing weakness, she may have just exposed the strongest parts of it.
Dow is over $50,000. I don't know why you're laughing. You're a great stock trader, as I hear, Raskin. The Dow is over 50,000 right now. The S&P at almost 7,000. And the NASDAQ smashing records. Americans' 401ks and retirement savings are booming. That's what we should be talking about. We should be talking about making Americans safe. We should be talking about, what does the Dow have to do with anything? That's what they just asked. Are you kidding?
Now this moment right here, it matters more than it seems, because it shows you exactly how this situation has been handled from the start. Direct question: why were key files being withheld? Direct answer: there wasn't one. Instead, deflection, redirection, change the subject entirely. And this wasn't a one-time thing. This has been the strategy for months. Whenever pressure builds, shift the conversation. Whenever accountability shows up, create noise. But this time, that strategy didn't hold. Long before this document release, Pam Bondi was already under scrutiny. Congress wasn't just asking questions anymore, they were escalating. Subpoenas, hearings, direct accusations. And leading that charge, Congressman Jamie Raskin, who didn't just suggest something was wrong, he said it outright. That what they were seeing looked like a cover-up. Not subtle, not complicated, a cover-up.
Performance screams cover-up. Convicted sex trafficker and groomer Ghislaine Maxwell opened the gates of hell to Virginia Giuffre and hundreds of other victims, as Virginia recorded in her remarkable book, Nobody's Girl. But when Maxwell was subpoenaed to come testify before Congress, you and Todd Blanche quickly moved her from a higher security prison to a minimum security camp in Texas, where she's enjoyed 5-star treatment, including catered meals, private gym time, and access to a therapy puppy. All because Todd Blanche, who's utterly failed to investigate the monstrous crimes of Epstein and Maxwell's co-conspirators, spent 9 hours with Maxwell and satisfied himself that she would have nothing untoward to say about Donald Trump, which is your only real interest in the matter.
At the time, those accusations sounded political, partisan, expected. But now, after this document release, they hit differently. Because suddenly, there's something tangible behind them. Not just claims, not just speculation, actual internal documents, suggesting there was far more going on behind the scenes. This is the moment where everything flips. Inside the batch of documents that were released was a prosecution memo from 2023, drafted during the investigation led by Jack Smith. And according to that memo, investigators reached a conclusion, not a guess, not a theory, a conclusion, that Donald Trump's handling of classified documents was likely driven by business interests. Think about what that means, because this isn't just about documents sitting in boxes anymore. This isn't just about storage mistakes. This is about intent. Why were those documents kept? Why were they taken? According to what was just revealed, the answer may be tied to personal gain. And it gets worse. One of the documents mentioned in that memo was so sensitive that only 6 people in the entire US government were authorized to access it. 6. Not 60, not 600, 6. And somehow, that document left secure government control. Now here's where things start to unravel. If this information wasn't credible, if it wasn't serious, if it didn't matter, why was it sealed? Why was it hidden? Why was it kept out of public view? Because that's the contradiction no one can explain.
So White House have a comment on a letter that was sent from Congressman Raskin to the DOJ alleging that the DOJ recklessly released damning information in regards to President Trump's documents.
Yes, I saw that letter from Congressman Raskin this morning, who I would add has zero credibility, and this letter was clearly a cheap political stunt. What the congressman did here, Brian, and for everyone in the room who's hopefully not reporting on this as fact, is that he took untrue and salacious claims in a memo that was produced by Jack Smith, who has been completely discredited for his lawfare and his witch hunts against this president. And that information was unverified. It never even made it into the indictment because it was so unverified. And what happened to that indictment anyway? It was thrown out. And Jack Smith has been proven, again, to be a prosecutor on a witch hunt against President Trump. He tried to throw him in jail ahead of the 2024 election. The Biden Department of Justice was fully on board with this lawfare campaign. And in fact, this story that was concocted by Congressman Raskin was so ridiculous, I understand his communications team reached out to some outlets in this room who responsibly said, we're not going to write this because this is just too much. However, of course, MS Now did write that story this morning because they continue to be left-wing propaganda for the Democrat Party. But I think Jack Smith has been proven to be a liar and a fraud. And this is, again, a cheap political stunt from a Democrat on Capitol Hill who I think wants to get himself on cable television.
So the response comes in fast. Dismiss it, discredit it, call it fake, call it political. We've seen this exact strategy before. But this time, it runs into a wall. Because the source of the information isn't external, it's internal. These aren't leaked rumors. These are documents that were released by the Department of Justice itself. And here's the part that makes this situation even more serious. Some of these documents weren't supposed to be released at all. They were sealed by a judge at the end of the case, which means this isn't just a political misstep. It could be a procedural one, a legal one. And this is where everything comes full circle. The goal was to prove the investigation was flawed, to show bias, to weaken the case. Instead, the release may have confirmed key parts of it, that Trump knowingly retained sensitive information, that there may have been motive behind it, and that investigators had already built a case around that idea. Now imagine you're on the other side of this. You're a lawmaker. You're an investigator. You're someone who believed there was more to this case. And suddenly, you're handed internal documents, pointing you exactly where to look. That's what just happened. Because now, this isn't a blind search anymore. This is targeted, focused, directed. They know what investigators were looking at, what conclusions they were reaching, what evidence may still exist, and most importantly, what was being kept hidden. This is the part people are starting to focus on. Because if these documents are legitimate, if they reflect actual findings from the investigation, then closing the case last year doesn't mean it's over. It means it can be reopened, with new justification, new momentum, and now, new visibility. And you're already seeing the early signs. Lawmakers reacting, statements being issued, questions being raised again. Not about what might have happened, but about what was already found, and why it was buried. Because timing matters here. This didn't happen randomly. This happened during an effort to reshape the narrative, to push back, to control the story. And instead, it may have done the exact opposite. So now we're left with a situation where an attempt to defend Trump may have exposed him, an effort to discredit an investigation may have validated it, and a controlled document release may have triggered something much bigger. Right now, there are still more questions than answers. How much more is still sealed? What else is sitting inside those documents? And how far are investigators willing to take this, now that they've seen what's inside? Because if this is just the first glimpse, then this story is far from over. In fact, it may just be getting started. What do you think? Was this just a mistake, or something much bigger? Let me know below. And if you want more breakdowns like this, hit like, subscribe, and stick around.